What's up, guys? Appreciate everybody tuning into the Hustle Podcast. Sorry for the long delay. I'm back. I got more energy. I'm fired up. I got tons of guys lined up. I got tons of ideas. I'm going to be doing some solo tracks, having some guys call in. And I'm also going to try some live streaming during some duels, just kind of Joe Rogan fight companion style. So we'll see how that goes. And appreciate you guys tuning in. Coleman Scott, I've been waiting on this one for a minute. Get some.
I've been on top for a while. NASA chip to the moon.
So, this has been about 3 months in the making? Probably longer than that. It's been my fault for the most part. But finally got the pride of Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, head coach of UNC, Olympic bronze medalist, all kind of other gold medals. What's up, Coleman Scott? How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. Doing good. Same old, same old.
Same old, same old. So, man, I don't even know where to start. I got a ton of questions I want to ask about a ton of things that you were a part of that I think a lot of people just go straight to the Oklahoma State stuff. But and a lot of people, a lot of new school guys, I know new people to the wrestling world don't know about Angry Fish and Brenzer and a lot of that stuff. And you kind of came up in a little bit of that, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Raymond and Ty, helped me through really the bulk of my career there, back in Waynesburg. And they helped me grow up and really learn about a lot about the top end of the sport.
So a lot of people that don't know Ray Brenzer and kind of the Angry Fish model and how that came about, and I've heard a couple different stories about how it actually got made and and named and things like that. And for a lot of people that don't know, Ray was a very, I guess I would say, eclectic type individual. He used to put like a Gumby doll in the coach's corner to like coach him when he was wrestling. He was actually a really good wrestler. What was it like coming up through that club and being with a lot of those guys that, are a lot of guys like my age look back that were kind of legends or icons in the sport, not necessarily because of everything they did competitively, but just some of those guys were just on the forefront of, some progressive thinking and some of the initial clubs in America that, that put out guys like you and put out tons of other really, really good wrestlers.
Yeah, Ray Brenzer and Ty Moore were sort of the brains behind everything. Both from North Allegheny, PA. Both sort of, their thought process was a little different than, like you said, it was against the grain. And they were going to build this club right out of southwestern Pennsylvania in their backyard and get the best wrestlers in the area together in the whole within a 2-hour radius. We were going to get together and we were going to wrestle. It's sort of different thinking. And I did it, during high school even, would drive an hour down, hour back, and wrestle some other kids that I was competing against in essence. But they were some of the best kids in the state, and that's what they wanted. They wanted to create that environment, and I learned so much of the sort of, like I said, the top end of wrestling of how to really believe I was going to be, an Olympic champ. And, it sort of, with those two, it sort of led to the Oklahoma State and, with Tig Moore going there, Ty's his, of course, older brother and Ty really opening my eyes to some of the best wrestling. He took me to the NCAA tournament when I was younger. He took me to World Championships in 2003, which were up at New York City. He opened my eyes to a lot of that, him and Ray did, and really sort of helped that dream sort of build inside of me of what I wanted to do, of becoming an Olympic champ, and that was my goal and my dream, and it was really a lot of it was sort of they led that fire on, and sort of led that anybody can believe they can be that way, and we're going to help you chase that, and so they've really helped build that.
And we're living in a world today where the private clubs kind of dominate the elite level as far as the athletes go. I mean, there's some really, really good high school programs out there, but I mean, let's face it, high school coaches only get so much time with those athletes, so you have the Izzy Styles, you have the Young Guns, you have clubs like that are putting out elite level athletes now. So many years later, you being a head coach in college and recruiting and reflecting back on, that kind of foundation and that core and those guys that kind of put it in your brain early, you're seeing it in mass quantities now. You're not just seeing like a club with just like, kind of back in the day when you had the Stevers training with DT and Riley Adamson and a lot of those guys. And you had eight or nine guys and the Palmers, and then those guys went on to be great. I mean, you're having clubs with, 10, 15. I mean, look at Young Guns alone and the kids that are, top 10 in the country in college right now that came out of one stinking club, and obviously I'm jealous of PA and, and the talent level they got up there. But, reflecting back on that, like how much has that scene changed in the private sector? And, how much do you look at it now as a head coach of, not just their high school and what they're getting in high school, but where the clubs they're coming from and who's coaching them in their clubs, because you were a product of that.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I look at it as, we didn't really there wasn't all those clubs like you just named. We grew up in our local Waynesburg Kids Club, and we would go to, when I got older, Angry Fish came around, and it was an area to train, take the best kids in the whole sort of state and get together and, on Sundays, and then we'll do freestyle in the summer together, but we're gonna train together. We're gonna get better, and nowadays, kids are exposed at such a much younger age to the highest level, and it's really you see that age of Olympic champion even going down. I think the average in 2016 was, of all Olympic champs was 23 years old, and I believe a lot of that is, just because of the exposure of these kids at a much younger age now, with a couple things. You got the RTC development, which if you live within 250 miles of a big time college, you can get into their room through the RTC. You've got the development of high level clubs with some high level coaching. With what you guys have going on in Georgia, Jody has going on in PA. Izzy has going on in Chicago, and the list goes on. You guys are exposed to that's high level coaching. And I don't know if everybody had that back in the day. Like you said, you're sort of stuck to your town, your coach.
And Ernie Monaco was the guy that kind of started it all off. He's like kind of credited as being the godfather up at Edge, and that northeastern part of the world, has produced some of the most ridiculous talent. But it kind of started with his vision of doing that, and then like you said, it was kind of these spotty things with guys like Ray and Ty and those guys doing it, and then people started trying to do it as a business, and now it's just I mean I still kind of marvel at it, and I'm in that business, and I still marvel at it and be like, man, people are. There's so many of these clubs around that are like you said, at such a young age are getting like high level coaching, and it's all sports. It's not just wrestling, but the wrestling's the world we live in. But wrestling was such a starved thing for resources for so long, and I think it still is. But to look just, I mean, back in your career, I mean, when you were coming through in high school, and then what it is now, it's amazing the product. That they have to go to a local club and get that type of coaching. Do you think it makes your job easier when you're recruiting, or do you think it makes it a little bit tougher? And if so, like, what are the pitfalls maybe of having all these elite level kids coming out of high school and then trying to figure out, hey, is this kid capped out, or does this kid have more potential? And then how much ability you have in your coach, you as a coach and a coaching staff to get that kid that's the number one kid in the country and be like, you know what, I can take him from number one kid in high school to number one kid in college. And you and I both know that's a big difference.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where it's made our job a little bit harder in some sense, but it's also made it a little bit easier. If they're coming from the right programs, and I think that goes back to us, knowing really deep down if they're prepared to win at the highest level in high school or college, and knowing who their coaches were, how they were trained, if they're were trained too much, if they're trained too little, what is that room for growth? Because you're going to need some room to grow. Never is somebody coming out of high school and ready to win at the next level. They're always going to need a little bit of development. It's just the way that the progress is for what we do. And you really have to do a lot of studying to know a kid, to see if he's ready to make that jump or he's been exposed at such a young age and he's made about 10 jumps and I don't know if he's going to make another one.
Yeah, it was something. Believe it or not, you said training too much, training too little. It's so cool for me, just to get to talk to you guys on the phone, guys like you and like Brian Snyder and me were talking earlier today, and they took some lumps from Wisconsin this weekend, and he's kind of, we were just talking about random stuff and training, and we were talking about training cycles, and I was like, man, that's one thing that I still feel like I'm the worst at. Like I'm tough at training cycles, and he was trying to figure out, we're talking about that, and he was like, man, sometimes I feel like, we're in the room just because we feel like we got to be in the room, and it goes back to kind of like you said, man, like it's okay to rest. Like we got to get out of that caveman mentality of like, no, I got to get 5 hours in the room today or everybody's going to pass me type mentality. And he actually told me about a book. I can't remember. He didn't tell me the name of the book, but the guy talks about being brave enough to rest and like being brave enough to take a day off. And like, that's such a fresh concept for us as wrestlers, because we feel like, if I'm sitting at home and relaxing, and maybe I'm just watching film, or maybe I'm just not just checking out and watching TV and being a normal human being, like that everybody's catching you and you're not going to win a national title because you took a day off. And I think that's one of the biggest things in the private sector right now, is that everybody feels like it's got to be more privates, more training, more specialized, more strength coaches, more dietitians and all that. Like, is some of that a turnoff for you when you see this kid that's got 37 different individual coaches, and you're just kind of looking and being like, man, I don't even have that situation at UNC. I mean, is that something that you look at in a recruit as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to look at it, and it's all about being honest. We got to get to the mindset of train smart, not train hard. Right, which train smart might be training really hard, but some days it might be, okay, I'm not in the room today. I need to step back. I don't need to wear my body down. I don't need to run that much. And like you said, get out. I'm a new age thinker. I'm not in this old school, grind. I've got a young team, and I got to get the best out of each kid, because that's what I want, and that's what they want. Right? They want to get the best out of it of themselves. Right, there's days that they need to take off. But I do look at what you said, like, guys that sort of are up on this pedestal because everything's pampered for them, everything's done for them. They've got individuals with the best coaches in the area, and they're at this level that's above everybody else. Well, will everybody else catch them when the field's level and they've got great coaching all around? You got to look at that and make sure that that's not the case, because there has to be that room for growth. There has to be that struggle in life, right? It's struggling, even in high school. Sometimes losing a match, right? I mean, that might be what you need to put you to the next level, right? And any struggles we usually have, work will take us out of it, right? When we're struggling on the mat, when we're struggling in life, putting your head down and just outworking everybody, not being worried about everybody else, worrying about yourself internally, making sure that your life's as simple as can be and you got your priorities straight. You're not too busy to do the certain things, right? That's what's going to take us to the next level, right? If a kid's not willing to do that because mommy and daddy have done it for him his whole life, they've given him 4 individuals a week, they've done this, that's not going to work out, because you're going to be on your own. You're going to be down the road to college, and you're going to have to be getting up and doing individuals on your own if you want to get better. You're going to have to be sitting down and saying, hey, this is what this is what I'm feeling. This is what I need. This is the areas of focus. But I also do need these days off because I got to recover. Because at the end of the day, I need to win wrestling matches. That's what I'm judged upon. And I want to make sure I'm not too run down. And kids nowadays, I don't know if they understand that. They think that I get 15 individuals this week, and there's no number on how much it takes to be great, and it's different for everybody. And you have to know that. If not, then you're gonna, it's gonna be very, very hard to succeed.
And you talked about that, and that kind of leads me to something that, man, I could probably sit here and talk to you for hours and hours and hours about. You talked about coaching the individual, and I don't know. I mean, obviously he's the GOAT as far as competitively is concerned, and he's right up there when it comes to coaching. But I don't know if a couple things. I don't know if I've ever been around an athlete that's been coached by John Smith, your college coach at Oklahoma State, that isn't an amazing technician and teacher, first. And second, the different walks of life from the different backgrounds, the different parts of the country that man has coached to the elite level. Talk about, and I know we don't have hours and hours, but talk about a couple things that Coach Smith does on a level that obviously he's passed on to. I mean, look at you and Jamil and Cormier and Pendleton and even Coach Ward and guys that weren't even like elite level national champs like Coach Ward, who's doing an amazing job at an elite level as a college coach. Talk about that experience of being coached by him, not necessarily competing for him, but the experience being coached by him and how that's turned all of you guys into what seems to be amazing coaches yourselves.
I think a lot of it is, just a belief and attention to detail. I think when I walked in that room at Oklahoma State as a true freshman, young kid, 18 years old, in 2004. I just sort of fell in line. I just followed what Jake Rochelle, Chris Pendleton, and Espo, and Kevin Ward, Johnny Hendricks. I just fell in line and did what they did. Now, of course, hard work. We worked hard, but John was just a master of, getting us to believe, that we were the best. Whether we were or not, I believed walking out on the mat, I was prepared to win that match. And it came from my training. It came from my skill. I was going to be in great shape. I was going to find a way to win the match. I wasn't going to try. I was going to do. And it sort of spills over into coaching, right? Like I feel like with the amount of time and the thought and the effort and the energy that we put into each and every day, we're prepared to win every match that we step out on the mat for. Will we win every match? No, but we're going to be prepared, and we're going to give ourselves a chance to win each and every match. And I'm going to believe it, and my athletes are going to believe it. And I never stepped on the mat thinking that or doubting if John thought I could win that match or Coach Smith. I always thought, hey, they're expecting me to win. They believe me. He evidently prepared me the right way to win this match. There's this belief behind me that him and Coach Branch and Pat Smith and Guerrero and all those guys have in me, and I have it in myself now, and I was going to lay it on the line for the guy before me and the guy after me, and this is a team thing. If you wrestle for the team, it'll take care of your individual result, and that's the way we treated it, and it did, and it just sort of never failed that, if you wrestled that way and you had the belief in yourself that they had in you, you were going to be all right, because he was going to prepare you. He was going to make sure you knew the skill. He was going to make sure you were in shape. He was going to make sure you were ready to compete at the highest level at that moment.
What was number 2 on your list if you didn't go to Oklahoma State?
There really wasn't one. It was pretty clear cut. I visited, I think, 7 total schools.
Right.
With 5 with official visits, unofficial, and I looked at Iowa, OU, Nebraska, North Carolina, Penn State, West Virginia. But when I went to OSU and
who was at UNC at the time? Was that
Kerry Colat? And
Colat was there. I forget how young you
for his
are.
first
God, you're a young buck still.
And 2000, he was there. He was here because I was doing all my visits in 2003. The fall of 3 is when that was.
So
the
jumping levels video. Have you ever watched it? Have you ever watched the jumping levels video? You were in the room, so I'm asking. To me, that's probably the best, most iconic video on Flow. It's one of the oldest videos on Flow. I mean, it was early on when Martin was still just driving around in his van shooting videos, and it still amazes me to this day. Out of all the college teams and rooms that have not had media, not allowed media in, like Coach Smith just doesn't care. He lets anybody and everybody just about come in his room and be a part of his program and cover his program. But it was a video of him talking to you guys about having a purpose. And he was talking about the new guys coming in, and the older guards, basically the guys that you just mentioned, and then talking about you guys being the younger guys, and being prepared. And I remember, like, when me and Roper first started the compound, like, we had just stumbled across that video. You know, that was 12 years ago, 11 years ago, whatever. And we watched that video almost every single day, and we'd show it to our kids, and we'd just preach about, you know, we had no clue what we were really doing and what jumping levels was at that time. We were just two fumbling coaches with a bunch of kids that didn't know how to wrestle. But, I mean, how often did John give you that philosophy, that talk, that thing that just made you want to go run through a brick wall? I mean, was it every day?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day. Every day before and after practice, you had a speech that, you know, now looking back on it, I was going like, you know, very, very fortunate. You know, I'm very fortunate just to be there and be a part of it and hear what he was having to say. You know, his mind is, you know, it's the best in the entire world. You know, he's a wizard. He understands this sport, and he gets the most out of his athletes, and they get better each and every time they step on the mat, and their best performances at the NCAA Championship, and, you know, the list goes on of what he's capable of doing, you know, and I was just sort of along for the ride. I don't know if I appreciated it at the time, but, you know, before and after practice each and every day, the words of motivation and the way that he put it still to date is the best I've ever heard. And it came every day, every single day. I don't know how he drew the motivation he did, you know, to keep that up each and every day, especially, you know, my first couple of years when I walk in and, you know, we're sort of we're the big dogs. They're, you know, we had 5 national champs that year, a couple other All-Americans, and we didn't lose a dual meet. You know, how do you keep these guys fired up each and every time? You know, they're sort of whipping everybody. Of course, I wasn't personally, but the others were, you know, and I was just trying to do what they were doing.
That's one of those things is as we get older and as we find different places in life, whether it's fatherhood or marriage or relationships, and then you get to coaching, you always seem to hear your parents' voice in the back of your head, and then sometimes you open your mouth and your parents come out, and then you also find yourself saying, you open your mouth and your coach comes out. Like I'm assuming you have plenty of those instances now, coaching for as long as you have, where you just open your mouth and Coach Smith comes out, and you kind of realize.
And I get called out on it. My wife calls me out on it. All of my other coaching buddies, they'll hear something, they'll go, "Well, that sounds just like John." You know, and we sort of all, I think we all do it. I don't think we can help ourselves, you know, because we did pay attention a lot, you know, to what we did, and you know, as we're going through, I think that resonates a lot, you know, with his coaching tree. I think you listen to any of us, I think there's going to be a lot of philosophies that are the same.
100%.
You know, I don't care who it is. I think we sort of all agree on a lot, you know. And of course, when you're winning titles and you're the best in the country, you're going to pay attention to what you did. You know, and you're still today to believe in it, you know, those philosophies, and that's sort of how we've all coached.
So, how many years you been coaching in college now? What year is this for you?
2012. It's like 7, 8 years.
So you've been in, me and you have had a pretty long conversation about when you get to UNC and you knew it was going to be tough, and then you realize how tough it was going to be, and where you guys are at now from where you came, and what made it almost even tougher for you is what you just talked about. You came from the elite, and you stayed and coached for a while. So it was elite as a competitor, elite as a coach, and then it was like you get to UNC and it's like, holy smokes, like almost like, what have I gotten myself into? I want to get back to Stillwater. Talk about that process and talk about how it's molded you and helped you find your way as a head coach now. Because I still don't think even guys like me that are kind of in tune with guys like you and Roper and a lot of these guys that are coaching in college don't have an appreciation for what it takes to be a head coach. And then on top of that, what it takes to win at that level.
I think that, I knew no different than, Oklahoma State wrestling when I left high school and went there and spent 10 years of my life there. I competed, I trained, I coached. When you get blinders on and you know nothing other than that, you don't pay attention to what's going on around you in any other program. I didn't care what anybody else was doing. I was worried about Oklahoma State wrestling and myself, and I was still competing then, and you don't even know or think what any other program would be. And when this opportunity came in 2014 to come here to Chapel Hill, I honestly didn't know what it was like outside of having national champs every year, having guys that are, going to be the best in the country, chase be the best in the world, surround yourself sort of with greatness, chase a team title. You're going to count up how many All-Americans can we get 7, 8 All-Americans this year that can put us in the hunt for a team title. That was how every year was. I didn't know any different. Nor did I think any different. I just sort of, I came in here and I thought sort of the same thing. Like, damn, we're gonna, we got to build this program. We're going to compete for a national title. And it's going to take A, B, C, D.
Right.
You sort of seen how John did it. And you paid attention. You wrote a lot down on what to do, what to not to do. You sort of you always have this vision that it's going to be a little bit easier than it actually is. But ultimately, when I took over, I was going like, whoa, and even the next year in 15, I'm going like, oh man, this is, they're in no manual for this. What the heck? I didn't even expect this. What's this situation? And this never happened in Oklahoma State. I've never even, this guy, what do you mean you don't want to wrestle? What are you talking about? It's what we do. So there's a lot of things that I didn't expect, that I had to learn, but being here at a young age and, having a sort of a blueprint of what they did at OSU with John and Coach Smith. And, I took that and of course I had to modify it a little bit. I had to make it our own, and the best thing I can do as a coach and as a competitor is to not emulate, but is to take from every person I know and make it my own, and get better in areas that I think we can get better, get the kid that's right for the University of North Carolina. That's a kid I got to recruit, not maybe the best kid in the country. I got to recruit the kid that's best for the University of North Carolina and identify that. What is that? And then I can build from there. I'm going to have to tell a kid a promise when I first get here and let him know that this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to surround you with greatness. Was it hard? A freak? Yeah, it was hard. It was absolutely hard. The first couple of years, hardest years of my life to get there. But not losing track of really what the end goal is and how, and the belief that, hey, we are going to have a national champ. Hey, we are going to compete for a trophy. It might take 3-4 years, but we're going to do it. And I'm going to do it the right way. I'm not going to go, do this over here that could take me a little bit quicker and at the end of the day, it could test my morals. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it the right way. And I'm going to figure out that way. And I'm going to envision that goal and keep that goal in mind and I'm going to enjoy this process. Will it have some ups and downs? Absolutely. Am I going to have to make some changes, midway through? Yeah, absolutely. But at the end of the day, I know what I want to do and I'm going to surround myself with people that help me, and I'm not going to have an ego. I don't care. And we're going to get better together. We're going to do this thing together.
You say that, and I don't want to say a head scratcher, but it definitely was. If I was going to pick somebody that I think you would bring in as an assistant coach, it probably wouldn't be a former competitor. and it probably wouldn't be a guy from Iowa. But I'll tell you right now, and and he knows, so I got no problem saying it. And we and him have talked about it. I did not like Tony Ramos as a competitor. I tell you this, man, he is one of the most genuine, hardworking, awesome individuals that I have the privilege of calling a friend. Talk about bringing him on, and because I want to get to Coach Monday and obviously the Oklahoma State connections that you brought in with him, and then having Kennedy and stuff. But like, talk about bringing Tony in, and you guys pretty much lived in two completely different worlds from the public's perspective, right? Oklahoma State was these slick kind of, whatever wrestlers, and these Iowa guys were just these hard-nosed kind of cavemen. And that was the two teams back then, So obviously your competitive career is over in your coaching, and we grow up a lot and our perspective changes, but some of those philosophies are still ingrained in you, like you talked about with Coach Smith. Like, what was it about knowing Tony was going to come in and make an impact with that program?
I think it's a gamble that he called me the day after he beat me at the 2016 Olympic trials. For me, I had my coaching hat on. I was done. I was retired. I knew I was done. And I looked at it as this is an opportunity. Let's think outside the box here. We've got to get better, and if this guy, let's take the two winningest programs and arguably of college athletics, right. Oklahoma State wrestling, Iowa wrestling, right? Who has ever worked together and chased the same dream? At the end of the day, our two programs reached the same goal in a totally different way. Like you said, we were known for skill and we're going to slick you, and they're known for pulling on your head and being tough. And, I think we each had this vision of how each other wrestled and how the program wrestled. But if you combine them and if you have an open mind, you can learn, hey, what'd you do here? What'd you guys do here in this training phase? Or what'd you do in this position? And that's why we brought him in. I called my coaches at the time and I said, what do you think about this? And, the first question I said, are you okay with this? Is this something
have you been drinking?
Yeah. And I literally said, guys, I'm done competing, right? I'm worried about, will this make our program better? That's it. The number one goal is we're going to do everything in the right mind to make this program better, because that's what it's going to take to be the best. I don't care what it is. I don't care who it is. If you guys think that this is going to happen and make us better, then we're going to do it. And that's where we went. And of course, I think I got lucky, with Tony. This dude is a workhorse. He wants to work harder than anybody. He doesn't need to tell you how he's going to do it. He's just going to do it. And that's been freaking awesome. This guy, for us and as a program and share the same vision and be able to have open conversation and, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? And not hurt each other's feelings.
And he's not going to sugarcoat it either. He doesn't sugarcoat too many things.
You're going to know you're going to know where you're staying with him. He's going to tell you the truth. And we can go back and forth about it. And at the end of the day, we walk away and be like, all right, this is the plan. We're both going to implement it, whether it's mine or his, and we're fine with it. Right. And that's the best part about it. And that's having a great staff around you.
Well, let's talk about present day. So obviously, huge strides since the day you stepped foot on campus across the board. You've added one of the GOATs, Coach Monday, who's doing RTC work, but also his impact is across the program, of course. And you started getting those recruits, and a lot of times, you take over the program, you're stuck with the kids that were recruited before you. They might not have been what fit in your style or program or what you want to do. So, it's not wait to get rid of those guys, but, it takes a while to get your guys in there. You're starting to get your guys in there and you're starting to get time with your guys, and start to implement your entire plan with your solid coaching staff. And where do you feel like where you're at right now with your program, and where do you feel like your trajectory is next couple of years?
Where we're at, I think we're enjoying the process. I think we've got a couple guys on the team that are chasing national titles. I think in a few years we'll be, if not this year and here pretty soon, chasing the team trophy. And you can call me crazy, but I'm a strong believer, and you got to think big to be big. Part of that is believing in the guys you have and the people around you. I believe each and every one of these guys, when they step out on the mat, they're prepared to win. I truly do. No matter who it is, they're prepared to win that match. Are they going to? I can't guarantee that, but I can guarantee that I believe it, and they're prepared to win. And we're still building. And I think we're always building. I don't think there's ever a time when we're not building. I don't care who we have. I don't care how many national champs we have. We're always building. You're always striving to be better. No matter what, you can't be content. You can't be satisfied. We'll never grow as human beings, as coaches, or anything. So I think that I look at our team, and I've had this thing of build from the top down. Is what I've always said. Let's get the best coaches, people that are Olympic champs, world champs, national champs, that I've trusted in, that I've believed in, that can lead these guys. And let's build from the top down, and let's make this thing. I want to win national titles. I want to win team titles. I also want to have Olympic champs. I also want to have world champs. And that's been my goal. I want every athlete to outdo myself. I want them to be better than I've ever seen. That would make me happier than anybody. For them to achieve their goals. And so that's what we've sort of stuck to. And right now I think that it's probably the funnest I've ever had with a squad, with a team that's believed in that as well. And I literally don't think I go to work every day. These guys are freaking awesome to work with, to go to the practice every day and get better. And you got 25 guys staying after practice is done to do more conditioning, to do more lifting, to do more skill work. I've got guys asking, "Hey, can we come in at 8 a.m. tomorrow and do some skill?" Absolutely. When they're wanting more and more and more and more, that's when we start growing. They just want to learn. They just can't get enough. They're having fun being exhausted each and every day. That's when you got a good group of guys.
How big of an impact do you think the RTCs make on the college recruiting game? The ability to, and let's face it, you got the Tag brothers both in your room. They were doing a year up at the OTC. You got Cade McCrary, who has big Olympic aspirations. You add J.O. We all know what his capability is. He literally has the ability to win a world Olympic title, and nobody will be shocked. And like I mentioned earlier, you got Coach Monday in there. How big of a game changer is the RTCs? And on top of that, what is your stance on Coach Smith thinking that RTCs don't need to be at the colleges?
Yeah, I understand the stance on it. I really do. I feel like that the RTCs have given me or enabled me to compete a little bit earlier because I was willing to embrace that RTC. And these kids nowadays, I think that when I was going through it really wasn't a question. I wanted to be a world and Olympic champ, and the schools I was looking at was going to be able to get me there because they did have they all had clubs, and it wasn't formalized. Now with these RTCs, everybody sort of sees you out there, and you got Tar Heel Wrestling Club, and it's a formal RTC, and we've got guys training, and we've got a full-time coach, and so these kids are gravitating towards that. I definitely understand the struggles, per the NCAA and WCA and of what the RTCs cause for them. I do. I understand it. I just truly believe that, going back to one of the first questions you asked was, about the opportunities that kids have nowadays. When kids live in that radius and they can train with the best kids in not just the country but also the world, and have some of the best coaches in the world, legally having their hands on them because they live within the radius of that RTC, that helps the country, and that's why the age of Olympic champs has decreased by 5 or 6 years over the last 5 years.
100%. I mean,
You know,
I heard
and
Alan.
I think that it's not the sole reason, but I think that that's part of the reason.
100%. I mean, I heard Alan Freed say at one time. He said, "You want to be a world champ, you have to train with world champs." That there's been exceptions to the rule, but you can't argue with it. And like you said, you're Olympic bronze medalist. Ramos was a multiple-time world team member. Kenny Monday's, reputation speaks for itself and what he did on the mat. Me personally, I'm a hey, go out there and give them every opportunity they got, give them every tool that the school has. I understand that there are some universities that it might create an unfair advantage for that don't have the fundraising capability or don't have, but I mean, I look at it this way. There's a lot of people that have done a lot more with a lot less, and there's always a way to do something. And yeah, but again, you could be looking up the hill or somebody could be looking up the hill at Penn State and being like, I'll never have Penn State money no matter how much money I fundraise. But you can start. You can build a framework. You can build a platform, and you might not necessarily have 15 guys on the roster, how many ever they have or you have, but you could start somewhere, and you could use that even as a tool. Like you said, you got 250. I didn't even know it was 250. I thought it was smaller than that. 250-mile radius of the kids coming on campus, and then getting them used to just being in your room. I remember what was it, Matttown or Matttown was wasn't it? It was at UPenn's room. One of the first times I heard about a club being in like a college room, like way back in the day. And I was like, kids can get on college campuses and practice in the room. And it might have even been, God, I can't even remember at this point who it was. But it was just a USA club, but they were practicing out of a college room. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing at all. I mean, I get where some of the guys are coming from, but why do you think Coach Smith, being the guy that he is from such a freestyle rooted, international standpoint, doesn't want it to happen?
I think it's, of course, not, because he still helps all the time with USA Wrestling. He's putting guys on the world team. He has guys chasing Olympic aspirations, right? So it's definitely not that reason, right? He's not trying to hinder kids, in that reason. I think it's more of a fundraising standpoint of how much it takes away from the university, right? When you've got to do the same amount of fundraising for this external organization that sort of doesn't get to college much, right? It just helps kids continue chasing a dream after college, and it's sort of a never-ending cycle, right? And I'm a small RTC. My RTC is pretty small. I keep it pretty small. I want to do it for the right reasons. I want to build world and Olympic champions, right? And if I have to, put my money towards a couple individuals, I'm going to do that rather than spread it thin over 10 individuals. But it is a never-ending cycle of the fundraising, and you're taking away from your quote-unquote endowment with the university if you're putting it towards your RTC, and so that I think that's where a lot of that's generated from. Definitely not, on the side of hindering kids. I think that he still helps that each and every year, and his goal is still to have world and Olympic champions, and he's just sort of old school thinker. And you know how it is with when you've done something the same way for a lot of years and you've won at that level, so.
Right. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to kind of paint us a picture of what it's like to have the support of a woman like Jess. I mean, she's been just baptized in the wrestling world just about as much as you can be as a female that didn't wrestle, just with her connections and family and all that stuff. Talk about what a pillar she's been in your life. I mean, even before kids, when you were competing, and a lot of people have heard the story. Mike Mal did a piece with you about how horrible that weight cut was, trying to get down. When you were trying to make the team, and just how supportive she's been. I mean, I live in that same world. My wife is one of the most unbelievably supportive, and just lets me kind of be that wrestling guy, and doesn't hold it against me. And it gets dicey. We have those times, but just talk about Jess and talk about what role she's played and how you've been able to come this far as an athlete, as a coach, and do this thing and almost, live this dream of yours and her be along for the ride and be supportive of it.
Wouldn't be where I am today without her. Without sort of that, like you said, that rock. I mean, shoot, she was supporting the family and myself when I was training and making no money, and all the way through. I got a big decision to make. Not a big decision, but I got a life decision to make of if I'm coming here, if I'm doing this. Of course she's going to be involved in it. I'm going to put my trust in her, and ultimately, for me, it's about making sure my family's happy and they enjoy where they're living and they enjoy what we're doing, because this is a family deal. This is not a thing that, hey, I'm a coach and you guys are going to follow me and this is what we're going to do. And, that's not sort of how I operate. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. And, that's my number one priority in life. And like I said, I wouldn't be where I am without her. I wouldn't have had this. I don't believe I would have had the opportunity to win an Olympic medal. I don't believe I would have had an opportunity to coach here. And a lot of it's just because, like you said, the support, the willingness to be honest with me, not sugarcoat anything, and making sure that I was doing the right things. And when people want to give you a hug, she's pushing you further. And saying it's all right. You can give up that now. That's she knew that wasn't what I wanted, and she wasn't going to accept it. And that's been the best part about it.
Last thing, and it's starting to be relatively new in your world. Kids wrestling. Your kids getting into wrestling. Mm-hmm. You got two boys and a girl. And what is your approach, and have you thought a lot about it? I saw a tweet or something the other day where talking about being coached, and then you said, what is dad, chopped liver? How involved do you want to be? How uninvolved do you want to be? I've lived both sides. I was too involved and pushed my oldest son too hard, and I feel like I was right about average with Cameron, but there was probably about 20% I could have not been a crazy dad and gotten out of him, but I just chose not to because I put too much into because I pushed Anthony too hard. Have you guys had talks about that? Do you have a strategy with that, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, this is what I tell a lot of parents and a lot of people I talk to. You want to learn what not to do, go to a little kids wrestling tournament. You can learn a ton of what not to do. For me, it's about being supportive. If they want to wrestle, they want to wrestle. It's more about them being active right now. I think we play lacrosse, we play soccer, we're basketball, we're baseball, you name it, we're doing it. Of course, we've got a little club here at the school, and Gary Wayne runs it. And I don't even put my clothes on. I don't even put my shoes on when I go into the room with them. I sort of drop them off, and I sit over on the side and I talk to the parents, and sort of be a dad. Super supportive of them. If they want my help, I'll answer the question. But I'm not going to be that overbearing. I think that for me, it's more about how can I let my child have a great time, because here's the deal: my kids are going to be around wrestling 24/7, whether they like it or not, because I am and my wife is, right? So they can't get away from it. If I pushed it on them, I feel like that they would just go away from it.
Sure.
Right. So the approach I'm taking is just, hey, you want to go to practice tonight? They're 8 and 5. My daughter's 8. My son's 5. Super young. If they want to go, they want to go. If not, hey, we we go get some ice cream and hang out, and it's not too big a deal. I definitely want them to be active. Like I said, if it's wrestling, it doesn't really bother me right now, and nor will it down the road. I might not have any wrestlers. That's all right. That's all right. I do want them to do the sport because of what it teaches you as a person and as a human, and the discipline. Sure. And the how freaking hard it is to get on the mat.
Just the people you get to be around too, man. Just the people you get to be around. Let me ask you. It's just a tough sport. Let me ask you this, and I've talked to quite a few, very accomplished dads, coaches, whatever, and I've gotten the answer a couple times, whether it was them lying to themselves and me or them being truthful. When you talk to those guys about, how are you gonna let your kid know it's okay to not be as good as you, or that it's okay to have your own path. And I get the only shoes they got to fill is their own. They don't have to fill mine. A lot of times they're like, man, you got some big shoes to fill. Your dad was 18-time national champ and, this, that, and the other. How are you going to combat that or kind of set that condition to where they never feel like they have to accomplish what you did or at least get to that standard, because that's what they want to do. Our kids are hardwired to want to make us proud, and they think making us proud is meeting or exceeding what we did as human beings, no matter what we did, whether it was job or education or sports, and I struggle with that and still struggle with that. And I got 2 grandkids now, and I'm sure it'll end up being the same thing if they wrestle,
Yeah, and that comes a lot external, right? I don't think any of us, I don't think you're saying, hey, you got to be as good as I am, right? It's just sort of other people putting that perception into these kids' heads that they need to be as good as their parents, or hey, I remember when I coached Joseph Smith, at his young age, hey, I beat John Smith. Come on, man. It's Jojo. It had nothing to do with John, right? Wrestling wise, right? He's his own person out there, right? Don't compare him to his dad. And for me, it's about, how I'm going to combat it. I actually have no clue. I think that I've asked this multiple times, and I don't know if we can combat it because it is external, right?
Right.
We're not making the comparison, and people always are going to make that comparison. Being in the shadows is probably one of the best things I can do.
Right.
Being there to support them, but making sure that they know, hey, it's not that I don't want to be there. I don't want people putting us together in that situation, and making it that they're trying to beat me when it's you out on the mat, and I don't want my kid to go through that. That stinks, and sort of shame on people for acting like that, and I just want my kids to have fun. I want them to enjoy their life. They're going to be active. They're going to be in sports, no matter what sport it is. And the big thing is that I can have a great relationship with them for the entirety of their life, and I can be proud of them, and they can be proud of me for who we are, and be successful with whatever they end up doing.
Well, Coleman, man, I tell you, I appreciate our friendship. We have some amazing wrestling conversations. I wish we'd just tape them all, and some of them we could put out there, some of them we couldn't. But man, I appreciate the competitor you were. I appreciate the coach you are. I appreciate the husband and family man you are. I pick up a lot of small things and a lot of big things from you. And man, I just appreciate your time being on the podcast, and we'll run it back soon.
Anytime, man. Appreciate being on.
All right, brother. Take care.
With a brand new wrist set it. Inside the new Maybach coupe, peanut butter jelly. I'm sliding in the road, sliding in the lamb, sliding in the Benz. Been working on my confidence and respect. I get a lot of it. I don't ever mean to contradict.